I was never the child they expected, and they were never the parents I needed. I clearly remember every moment of being abandoned, not because I wasn't loved, but because they never truly saw me as a part of the family. Many times I wondered if I could be someone else, someone they wouldn't see as a flaw in their life. I am Tessa, and my story is unlike anyone else's. Though I tried everything to gain my parents' attention, all my efforts were in vain. I was born when my parents already had Emily, my older sister. Emily was the perfect child they had always wanted, while I was just a mistake they never planned for. My parents had a fulfilling life with Emily, and my arrival only made them feel tired and confused. My mom always told me, "We already have Emily, you don't need to be here." Those words, though not malicious, still made me feel the coldness. When my mom busily planned extracurricular activities for Emily, or prepared her college application, I stood outside, silently observing, feeling like a ghost in my own family. I was not loved the way Emily was loved. When my mom eagerly talked about her accomplishments, her excellent grades, science awards, and everything she achieved, I could only stand in a corner, watching her proudly talk about the child she truly cared about. As for me, I never received that attention. It seemed my presence was an inconvenience, a nuisance, in the family's plans. To me, home was not a place I felt safe. Instead, I found love and care from my grandparents, the only ones who truly loved me as I was. Every morning, when my parents sent me to my grandparents' house, I could feel the unconditional love I never received from them. My grandparents never complained, never made me feel like a burden. My grandfather, a retired math professor, would often teach me lessons in math, about numbers and how they were always accurate. He would say, "Numbers never lie, Tessa, they will always tell the truth." These lessons not only taught me about math, but also about how life works. I learned to view the world through a lens of truth and precision. My grandmother, a gentle and patient woman, would always sit beside me when I studied, helping me understand each difficult concept I couldn't grasp. Those moments are ones I will forever remember. She would always say, "Knowledge is something no one can take from you." In the afternoons we would cook together, and she would teach me how to make the dishes I loved. Those meals were not just food, but the way she expressed her love. The moments when I truly felt like I belonged somewhere. I never felt abandoned when I was with my grandparents. They were my real home. The conversations, the lessons, the simple moments full of love, were the things I treasured the most. Every night, before I went to bed, my grandmother would say, "Tessa, you are the best thing your grandparents have." Those words, like a promise, like a warm flame, would ease my loneliness as I faced the long days at home without feeling any care from my parents. However, my life was never like a fairy tale. When I turned 14 and Emily left for college, I hoped my parents would change, would look at me differently. But I was wrong. I just became the housekeeper, the one who cooked and cleaned for a house they never saw me as a part of. My mom no longer prepared dinner, and one day she simply said to me, "You're old enough now, you'll cook for us from now on." I accepted, but, deep down, I couldn't help but feel like I was becoming a shadow in my own family. My dad never said anything about what I did, only cold remarks like, "If you live here, you have to work," or, "Emily always does housework, why can't you do it?" But I never received any recognition or love from them. The feeling of being unnecessary, of being unwanted, was always present within me. Somehow I still kept up excellent grades, still managed the housework, despite the overwhelming sense of being unloved. I tried to do everything I could to escape the loneliness in my own home. I thought that once I left the house, everything would change. But no. I was wrong. Things never changed. When Emily got engaged, it was a day I couldn't forget. My mom was happy, crying when she heard the news. The whole family focused on preparing for her wedding, and I was just the one watching. No one asked me how I felt. No one asked if I wanted to be involved in her wedding plans. They still couldn't see me, didn't understand what I needed, and I continued silently observing from a corner. And then, when I got the news I was accepted to college, I eagerly told my mom. But what was her reaction? "Oh, good for you, but we don't have the money to pay for your tuition." She didn't say anything about her pride, no congratulations. My sister Emily was the one who received all the attention. But I could only silently solve everything on my own. And that's when I decided I had to leave this house, leave this family. I couldn't live forever in the shadow of someone who never truly saw me as an important part of their life. When I grew up, I realized something. I couldn't live forever as a faint shadow in my own family. I couldn't wait for someone to love me, care for me. If I wanted to escape the loneliness, I had to stand up for myself, take control of my own life. And that was the moment I decided. I would not become a failure like they thought I would. I would prove that I could succeed, even surpass them. Despite being neglected and treated as unimportant in the family, I still maintained excellent academic performance. My grandparents were always the biggest motivation in my life. They never abandoned me, even when my parents treated me like a burden. Whenever I struggled with my studies, my grandfather would sit with me, showing me how to solve the problems, never letting me feel inferior. My grandmother, the warm and patient woman, always stood by me, from complicated math problems to moments when I felt weak and insecure. I will never forget the life lessons my grandparents taught me. "Tessa, you have to stand up for yourself. No one will help you if you don't know how to help yourself," my grandfather said. And it was he who helped me understand that in order to succeed, I couldn't rely on anyone, not even my own family. I had to depend on myself, on my abilities, to build my future. Those lessons stayed with me throughout my life, especially when I entered college. When I went to college, I knew that this was my only chance to escape from my family, and I would do everything to avoid returning to my old life. I received a scholarship to one of the top universities for finance and economics, something my mom had never considered. But I knew I had to prove my abilities. I couldn't let anyone think I was just a useless child. College life wasn't easy, but I learned how to overcome every difficulty. The long sleepless nights, the stressful exams, and all the moments when I had to solve problems on my own, without anyone by my side. I still remember the feeling of sitting in the library, diligently studying while my friends had families supporting them, with someone to help. But I didn't mind. I only had one goal: to study hard and get a good job. After graduation, I didn't return home. I didn't want to go back to the painful memories of my parents and Emily. I decided to find a job on my own. And I wasn't looking for just any job. I sought a job in the finance industry, where I could show my talent and strategy. I didn't want to be a failure. I wanted to prove that I could stand on my own. With a degree in finance in hand, I began applying to major companies, and luck smiled on me. A top financial company hired me. From day one, I knew this was the opportunity I had been waiting for all my life. I threw myself into the job with all my enthusiasm and passion. I didn't just work, I learned every day, improving new knowledge and skills to advance in the company. In the early years, I worked hard, constantly learning and proving my abilities. I never wanted to back down, never wanted anyone to think I was just a child who couldn't succeed. Gradually, my efforts started to be recognized. I was quickly promoted, from a regular employee to the head of a financial analysis team. The projects I participated in were all successful, and I began to receive attention from high-ranking people in the company. I still remember the day I received praise from a senior executive. "Tessa, your financial analysis skills are truly impressive. We believe you can handle larger projects." That compliment was like a confirmation for all my efforts. I hadn't wasted those difficult years. I had turned every challenge into motivation to move forward. My job became more stable, and my income kept increasing. I no longer had to worry about money, about struggling to make ends meet like before. I started to become independent, no longer needing help from anyone, especially from my family. Though sometimes I felt a little heartbroken thinking about my parents, I also realized that I was no longer the child they loved or cared about. I had achieved things I never dared to dream about when I lived in that house. Every time I received a bonus, Every time I got a new project, I felt like I was moving further away from my old family, a family that never loved me. I had my own apartment in the city center, a quiet and safe place, free from noise, indifferent gazes, and harsh words. I knew I was on the right path. The successes in my career were just a small part of the long journey I had overcome. The feeling that I could stand on my own, without anyone having to worry or take care of me, was the most precious thing in life. No matter how many people thought I would never succeed, I proved to myself that I could do it. That day when I received a promotion offer, I looked back at the path I had traveled. I was no longer the abandoned girl, no longer the faint shadow in the family. I had become an independent, strong, and confident woman. And even though my family never recognized it, I knew I deserved everything I had earned. My career continued to grow, and I became increasingly recognized in the finance industry. But I knew that, no matter how successful my career became, I would never go back to the past. I had overcome it, and now, I was only looking to the future. A future I had created for myself. Something no one could take from me. When I looked back, I realized that I had completely distanced myself from my family. My independence had made me a completely different person than they had envisioned. Yet one thing couldn't be denied. My family had never truly let go of me. Even though I had achieved success, they still found ways to cling to me, as if I were an endless resource they could exploit without paying the price. Emily, my older sister, was the one my parents had always been proud of and had high expectations for. I clearly remember the time they called me, boasting about her brilliant career. But when I started looking at the truth, I realized everything was just a rosy picture they had painted for themselves. Emily's career hadn't developed as my parents thought. On the contrary, she faced many difficulties in her job. Her husband James was no better. He failed to maintain a stable job, and his career seemed to be at a dead end. While I continued to move forward, achieving the accomplishments I had once dreamed of, my family, especially Emily and James, sank deeper into financial struggles. I couldn't help but notice that they began to rely on me, and that gradually made me feel tired. Every time my parents called, their questions about my job were replaced with complaints about their financial situation. "Tessa, we're in trouble, can you help us?" This question echoed every time I received a call from them. I couldn't refuse, although each time, I felt frustrated inside. Why should I help them, when they had never helped me throughout all those years? I had given them everything I had, but it seemed they were never satisfied. When I found out that my family was drowning in debt, I began to feel that things had gone too far. They had become dependent on me and I couldn't bear it anymore. But a part of me still couldn't be decisive because I could still hear my grandparents' words in my heart. Family is the most important thing. But when I looked at the reality, I realized that my family wasn't something noble. It was just a tiring and pressuring tie. The story became even more complicated when I discovered that my parents had run out of money. They had used all their life savings to help Emily and her family. But those efforts still couldn't fix the situation. Emily and James were never capable of being independent, and they became more and more dependent on my parents. Every time I saw my parents worry, I felt more and more uncomfortable. I couldn't be the only one responsible for everything. But maybe I was the only one in the family who could help them. One day, after a busy week, I went to visit my parents and saw the whole family sitting around the dinner table, their faces showing exhaustion. My mom, her eyes red from worry, said to me desperately, "Tessa, we really don't know what to do anymore. We've withdrawn all our savings to help Emily and James, and now we have nothing left." Her voice choked as though these words were difficult to say. My dad, still trying to stay calm, but I could see the disappointment in his eyes. "We've helped them as much as we could, but it's still not enough. Emily and James only know how to rely on us. We can't do anything more." Those words made me feel guilty. I couldn't help but feel responsible. No matter what, I was the only one who could help them. But I didn't want to keep doing it. I had spent my youth striving to prove that I could make it on my own. And now I had to take responsibility for a family that would never know when to say enough. When I returned home after that conversation, I couldn't stop thinking about what had happened. I had helped the family as much as I could, but I never got a thank you. They never acknowledged my efforts, and now I had to save them once again. But what would happen if I stopped helping them? Would I be selfish? Every question felt like a stone pressing on my chest. The calls from my parents never stopped. "Tessa, can you help us? Emily's having trouble again, she can't pay her rent," my mom said, her voice full of worry. This time, I couldn't stop feeling angry. I wasn't the family bank. I wasn't an endless source of money they could exploit whenever they wanted. But a part of me still couldn't bring myself to refuse. I thought of my grandparents and what they had taught me about family. But was it really right for me to carry everything, when my parents never truly cared about me? Every time I helped them, I felt more and more trapped in this cycle, unable to break free. I could clearly sense that my family had begun to take advantage of me, and I couldn't continue living in this selfishness. Could I be strong enough to refuse them for the first time? Could I break this loop, not just for me, but for my family? One evening, as I sat in my quiet room, looking out the window at the distant lights, I made a decision. I wouldn't keep helping them. I wouldn't let myself be exploited anymore. And if my family couldn't understand that, then maybe it was time for me to let go of everything that caused me pain. I would stand up for myself, no longer worried about those who never truly cared about me. From that moment on, I learned how to let go, and maybe that was the best thing I could do for myself. The death of my grandparents, the only ones who truly loved me unconditionally, completely shattered me. I couldn't believe they were gone. My life from childhood to adulthood had been intertwined with theirs. It was my grandparents who taught me about independence, about true love, and about the value of family. They were everything to me. But now, with them gone, I was left with only myself, and painful memories. When my grandparents passed away, I realized I couldn't live forever in regret. Even though I no longer had them to rely on, I still had another family, my parents, even though they never truly cared about me the way I wanted them to. I decided to buy a new house for them, a house where they could live peacefully in their later years. I wanted to help them, to do something that would make a difference, even though deep inside, I felt a profound dissatisfaction. I couldn't forget the feeling when I signed the contract for the new house. It was a house I had carefully chosen, a lovely, well-admitted house. Easy for my parents to live in as they grew older and couldn't take care of themselves. I put all my heart into this decision, hoping to create a new environment, a new opportunity for the family. This house wasn't just a simple gift, it was everything I could do for my parents, after all they had done for Emily. When the house was bought, I wanted to throw a housewarming party so my parents and I could start a new chapter in our lives. I thought this would be the chance for the family to reunite, for me to feel loved and accepted, but I was wrong. I couldn't have imagined that my own parents would turn this event into a painful joke. On that day, when I was preparing to go to my parents' new house, I got a call from my mom. Her voice was soft, but a little hesitant. "Tessa, we're having a small party to celebrate the new house. But, we want it to be a family party, so you probably don't need to join." It felt like a slap in the face. I couldn't believe what my mom just said. This party, this house was bought by me, for them. What I hoped for the most was a chance to bond with the family, and now I was being excluded from the very party I should have been the center of. I stayed silent for a moment, trying to control the rising anger inside me. "I don't understand. This party, this house, it's mine, Mom. Why am I not invited?" I tried to keep my voice calm, but I couldn't hide the disappointment in my words. "Don't you think I have the right to be a part of this party?" My mom was silent for a moment before replying, her voice becoming softer. "Tessa, we've prepared everything for Emily and her family. She really wants a night with the family, and we want Emily to feel loved. You understand?" Her words were like a deep stab in my heart. I had done everything to help them, and now they were doing this to me. I felt like I was the outsider in my own family, the one who was never truly appreciated. Emily, the one they always considered the golden child, was favored in every situation. As for me, even though I bought the house, I was pushed out. That day, I didn't say anything more and just hung up the phone. The anger and disappointment clouded my mind. I drove to the new house, but when I got closer, I saw luxury cars parked in front and the sounds of a lively party inside. My heart raced. I stood outside, feeling a lump in my throat. They weren't just having a party, they were having it in the house I bought for them. And I, the one who paid for everything, was cruelly excluded. I couldn't stand still any longer. I decided to walk in. As I opened the door, I saw familiar faces, all present at the party, from my parents' friends to other family members. And in the middle of the crowd, there was Emily, smiling, with her husband and children. Her whole family was sitting on the chairs, eating, laughing, while I stood at the door, feeling like an outsider. "Hello everyone," I walked in, trying to stay calm. Everyone went silent and turned to look at me. Suddenly, my parents stood up, surprised. My mom looked at me strangely, as if she didn't know I was coming. "Tessa, what are you doing here?" she asked, her voice sounding distant, not warm like usual. "Did the whole family forget to invite me?" I said, trying to keep my voice calm, though my heart was bleeding. "I should have been the one invited, right?" My mom hesitated for a moment before answering. "You know, this is a family party. Emily has a lot of things to take care of, and we wanted to focus on her. She really needs the support of the family right now." "She needs the support of the family?" I laughed bitterly. "What about me? Who's going to support me when I need it? She has everything, and what about me?" No one answered. Emily stood up, her face red. She came over to me and said, "Tessa, Mom just wants everything to be simple. Don't make things complicated." But I couldn't take it anymore. I had had enough of everything they had done. I walked up, took out the house ownership papers and said, "This is my house. I bought it for you, but I don't need any respect from you anymore." I raised the papers and looked my parents in the eyes. "I will never do this for you again. This is the last time." And then I turned around, leaving the house I had bought, the house I had once hoped would bring the family together. I knew I would never come back. Never again. From that day on, I cut off all contact with my family. The feeling that I could be free, no longer living in their lies and favoritism, was the best feeling I had ever experienced. I stood at the door of my parents' new house, the house I had poured all my heart and savings into buying for them, a house I had hoped would be the beginning of a new chapter for the family, where I would receive the love I had lacked for so many years. But now, I felt betrayed, pushed out of the very house I had created for them. I looked through the window, where the sounds of laughter echoed. The party was going on inside, everyone eating, talking, clearly enjoying the festive atmosphere, while I stood outside looking in. That feeling hit me like a slap in the face. The people I had sacrificed my life to care for were now living in the house I bought for them, but they didn't invite me to the party. All I received in return was indifference and disdain from my own family. Though the anger was rising inside me, I still tried to stay calm. I couldn't let them see me weak. I couldn't let them think I would keep enduring this contempt. I walked up to the door, opened it, and stepped inside. The atmosphere inside was filled with laughter, but when I walked in, all eyes turned toward me. The crowd went silent, and the noise in the room suddenly stopped. My parents immediately stood up, looking stunned and confused. My mom opened her mouth but couldn't say a word. I looked straight at her, not needing to ask. I knew what she was thinking. Clearly, they didn't expect me to show up at the party I had hoped would bring the family together. "Tessa, why are you here?" my mom asked, her voice trying to stay calm, but I could see the surprise in her eyes. "I came to attend my own party," I replied, my voice cold, though inside, an indescribable pain was swelling up. "Don't you think I have the right to be here? After everything I've done for this family?" Everyone in the room looked at each other, but no one said anything. Emily, the sister they always praised, stood up and walked toward me. She looked at me coldly, but her gaze also carried a hint of worry. "Tessa, Mom just wants everything to be simple," Emily said, trying to lower her voice, but I didn't let her take control of the conversation. "Simple?" I laughed, my voice sharp. "Your mom's child can't participate in the party she organized in the house I bought for you? Do you think I don't have the right to be here, even though I'm the one who paid for this house?" I walked into the living room, ignoring the reactions of anyone. I went straight to the table where everyone was sitting. "No need to pretend anymore. What have you all done in this house?" My mom looked at me, a little panicked. You don't understand, Tessa. This is a family party," she said, her voice trembling, seemingly trying to justify her actions. "Family?" I sneered. "What is your family if not deceit and selfishness? You've been living in this house without informing me, even though I'm the only one who bought it for you. What's going on here? What do you think I am? Just an outsider?" I looked around, unable to hold back my anger anymore. I took the house ownership certificate out of my bag, opened it, and placed it on the table. "This is the ownership of this house," I said, my voice strong and determined. "This house is not yours, it's mine, and you have no right to be here without informing me." The room fell silent. No one dared to speak. My mom, standing there, seemed unable to believe what I had just said. My dad stood near the door, his hands shaking, not daring to look me in the eye. Emily, the one always favored, now didn't dare to argue. My whole family, the ones who had always made me feel like a failure, now stood there silently, not moving. "It's time," I said, my voice calm but full of power. "I won't let you keep lying to me. You've lived in this house, eaten, and enjoyed yourselves without thinking about me. But now, you have to leave." I turned back to look at the people sitting in the room. "All of you," I said, "leave this house, right now." I didn't need to raise my voice, but there was something in my tone that made everyone step back. They had no choice but to obey. The party was no longer a warm gathering, it had turned into an unresolved conflict. The guests exchanged surprised glances, unsure of what to do. Emily and her husband James remained silent, lowering their heads. My mom looked at me with eyes full of pain, as if she had never seen her daughter so strong. And my dad, the man I once hoped would protect me, now just stood there, unable to say a word. People began to stand up, quickly leaving the room. Emily's children cried, not understanding what was happening. I could do nothing but stand there, watching them leave one by one, until the room was empty. The house I had created now stood empty. But in my heart, a sense of peace began to spread. This was what I needed to do, no matter how difficult it was. I stood there for a moment, observing the house I had put all my effort into buying for them. But now, I knew I had done the right thing. I had cut the invisible ties that had bound me for so many years. My eyes were filled with tears, but they weren't tears of sorrow. They were tears of release. This house was no longer a place that held the painful memories of my family. It was mine, and I would continue living my life without worrying about people who never truly loved me. After that party, everything inside me seemed to shatter. I had thought that if I helped my family, if I spent my time and money to buy that house, everything would change. But no, the only thing that changed was the blatant betrayal I had to face. I could no longer live in those lies and that favoritism. My family didn't just disappoint me, they completely shattered the trust I had tried to hold onto for years. The next day, as I sat alone in the spacious living room of the house I bought for my parents, I couldn't contain the emptiness I felt. The walls around me seemed to point at me, mocking my naivety when I thought I could change this family relationship. They had never seen me as an important part, and I could no longer live in the shadow of people who didn't really love me. I no longer had the strength to keep giving to a family I knew would never give back. Every time I looked at the house ownership certificate, I remembered their words and attitudes, and I felt my heart breaking even more. They had lived in this house without a single thank you. They ate, laughed, and enjoyed themselves without once thinking of me, the one who had done everything to give them a home. And now, holding the certificate in my hands, I knew I couldn't continue living in the shadow of this emotional neglect. I decided to cut off all contact with my family. I couldn't keep being manipulated. I couldn't keep giving them a chance to hurt me again. I was so tired of everything my family had brought into my life. Pain, disappointment, and the feeling of not being loved were all I got. What I gave them was nothing but unconditional sacrifice that was never repaid. My relationship with my family would never change. I had realized that I couldn't live this life forever, waiting for their acceptance. Change couldn't come from just one side, and I was exhausted from trying to change them. I couldn't keep living in a family where love and care were only given to one person. It was time for me to cut everything off. I made one final decision. I would sell the house. I no longer wanted anything from this family. I didn't need their fake care anymore. This house, even though it was a gift I had poured my heart into, couldn't replace the love I truly needed. It was just a burden, a constant reminder of the failures in the family relationship I couldn't change. It was time to escape all of that and find freedom for myself. When I decided to sell the house, a sense of relief washed over me. It felt like a huge weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I no longer had to worry about pleasing them, or trying to change what couldn't be changed. I was left with just myself, and I decided not to let my family control my life anymore. I called a real estate company and asked them to help me sell the house. The process went much faster than I expected. The house was sold and I felt relieved. The money from the sale was transferred into my account, and at that moment, I knew I had done the right thing. I didn't need to hold on to a house just because I wanted to keep a part of that family. I had lived for so long in sacrifice, waiting for something from them, but now I understood that I couldn't continue like that. The freedom I felt after selling the house was amazing. I no longer had to live in the painful memories of my family, no longer had to try to please people who never saw me as an important part. I was free, and I decided to start over. But this time, I would live for myself, not for anyone else. I would build a life where love and respect were unconditional. And then, I began to search for a new future, not in the place I was born, but in a place where I could live freely on my own terms. I didn't know where I would go, but I wasn't scared anymore. I didn't need acceptance from my family, from people who never understood me. I would find a place where I could build my own family, where love wasn't forced, where respect was a given. A real family, not the one I had once known. I would not let anyone take advantage of me anymore, never again. I would write my own story, a story not bound by fake emotional ties, a story of true freedom and happiness. That day when I walked out of my old house, I no longer felt regret. I no longer wanted to go back, no longer wanted to live in the shadow of a family that never considered me an important part. I was ready to write a new chapter in my life, where I could find the peace and freedom I deserved. And I knew, even without my family by my side, I would find love and respect from others. From those who would love me for who I truly am. Tessa's story is a powerful reminder of the strength in recognizing one's self-worth, and the courage to walk away from toxic relationships. Sometimes, love and respect cannot be found in the people we love most. Cutting off contact and seeking freedom can be the first step in building a new life, one where we are loved and respected unconditionally. Tessa's journey proves that liberation is never easy, but it is worth more than any sacrifice. And relax. Thank you for following Tessa's story. What do you think of her decision? Could you do the same in a similar situation? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to follow the channel to catch more interesting stories about family life.